Okay, so speaking about like theme songs, you brought up Titanic as a movie that is well known for having a theme song with Celine Dion. I just think that's a great segue into talking about theme songs from movies, like films where they brought in artists that didn't necessarily have anything to do with the movie, but who they just thought would be a good fit to sing, like Celine Dion, My Heart Will Go On, Titanic. I just feel like that is such an iconic song, and people will always associate it with Titanic. The song sort of had a life of its own, but everyone in their mind still associates it with Titanic. So it's just that was a great marketing decision on their part.
Yeah. I mean, off the top of my head, like literally, probably only My Heart Will Go On hits that level.
Mm.
I guess Top Gun's actually coming out soon, and Every Breath You Take, that's an iconic song as well. Iconic for an action movie as well, although not an action movie franchise, I guess. But that's also like a pop song that was part of a movie. Do you know any others or any other
Yeah.
favorites that you want to call out?
Well, I pulled up this list from The Guardian, and another good example of kind of an older one is I've Had the Time of My Life from Dirty Dancing. I
Yeah.
think that's a really good one. Maybe not as much that people associate with Dirty Dancing, because there have been subsequent covers. Like I think there was a cover of this that came out like a year or two ago, but this like still the original. When I think of that song, I still think of like the dance at the end. And I'm also thinking about Grease and other movies where like the the music is like part of the movie, so that doesn't really count. But I'm sure that
Yeah.
there's a ton more. I'm just looking at this list. Um,
But what about Beauty and the Beast? Like initially it was the Disney animated classic, and that was with Celine Dion and who was it? Josh Groban? No, maybe not. But it was a duet. But then in the new Beauty and the Beast is Ariana Grande and who was the guy? I feel like I don't remember the guy ever.
just no matter what song. Just
Yeah,
never remember.
but there's like new renditions of the songs that were tied to that film, back in the day that it first released, and I think that's kind of cool too. Like the fact that they're bringing it back and they're doing like a remix on it because they're doing a full remix of the entire film.
Yeah, well, they did that with Greatest Showman too, right? Like they had that whole
Ah,
album that
yes.
was like Greatest Showman remixed or something like that, where they brought in like Panic at the Disco and like Pink and Kelly Clarkson to do their own versions of songs.
Yeah.
And also with Frozen. So funny story. Before I'd ever seen Frozen, I think it like showed up on my YouTube page or something before the movie came out. Demi Lovato's version of the song
Oh,
came out. Like
yes.
it was probably 2 or 3 weeks before or something. So I listened to it and I loved it. Like I loved her version of Let It Go so much that by the time I saw the movie, to me, her version of Let It Go was like the version, and hearing Adina Menzel sing it didn't make any sense, and it wasn't the version that I liked. So I think it's so funny when we like get used to different versions of music. Like I've talked about In the Heights before, because I was used to the original recording, like the original cast recording. So then when I saw the movie, I was like not into it as much, and I wanted to hear the original voices in the original recording. But now that I've listened to it so much, I'm way more used to the movie version of the album.
Yeah. It was Ariana Grande and John Legend. I don't know how I
Oh,
could
yeah,
have
yeah.
forgotten John Legend. But they are now also on The Voice this year, as coaches. And actually, speaking of Frozen, like that is actually the way that people get into the film. Like whatever worked for you for Frozen is might be some way that other people, like Billie Eilish fans, get involved with like watching Bond. Like it worked for you, and so it's probably going to work in the same way for Bond. Although of course Bond isn't a musical, so you're not going to hear Let It Go being played or sung in the film. But that's probably why there's kind of that theme, that like sequence, the artsy sequence, like with the theme song. It's because then people get kind of like a music video, Bond themed music video also put in just as like a nod to, oh, you might have come here for Billie Eilish. We're going to let Billie Eilish shine in this moment.
Yeah, and to contrast that, I remember when Taylor Swift announced that she had written a song, Safe and Sound, for the Hunger Games soundtrack. And as you can imagine, I was like beyond excited. It was like the best day of my life. But I wasn't disappointed with the song. Loved the song, but I was disappointed because the song wasn't actually in the narrative of the movie. It was a credit song. And so it didn't have that same like kind of payoff. I wanted to be able to relate the song to the main character, to Katniss. And while it was like written specifically for the movie and the lyrics reflect that, it didn't feel the same way that like No Time to Die, the song, feels in the movie, where it's actually part of the movie and the credit sequence is all around the song. So yeah, just kind of contrasting those two different possibilities of like credit songs. And I guess like it is technically a credit song, the Billie Eilish song, but it's like the opening credits, so it feels different. It feels more important.
And it's also between the opening sequence, where there's a lot of action already, and the main bulk of the story. So it doesn't feel like sometimes I think credit songs feel like an afterthought. Remember, I think we talked about this when we talked about Lion King, and how Beyonce's song was a credit song, and it just feels like an afterthought. It feels like a downgrade almost. Like it doesn't feel like they wanted it to be part of the movie. Like how could they not have like kind of spliced it in? Although I guess Lion King
created
is
a new
hard.
sequence or something.
Yeah.
Like it was a remake. They could have done what they wanted. They could have added more scenes, and they did. Like there was a couple of scenes that were new. So yeah, that just seemed like a strange choice to both of us.
Yeah. I do think that I liked Billie Eilish's... I don't know, that's the thing. Like I keep saying it's Billie Eilish's song, but of course like some of the motifs were still used throughout the movie, and so it does feel like part of the film. And
it felt very
whether
organic.
that's Billie Eilish like doing that motif, or Phineas making that motif first, or whether that's Hans Zimmer and somehow there's some kind of collaboration. Honestly, I really don't know how music production and music industry works, because a lot of it is so collaborative that for me, it feels like it could just be like all three of them writing that motif together. But I really liked the way that it panned out in this film. It really worked as more of a cohesive thing. Like it wasn't just like a standalone song that never is reintroduced again. And I think that's great as a piece of art. It feels more cohesive.
Definitely. I love when like even not just like a song weaving into the soundtrack, but when like it's a musical and you hear some of the same motifs from like one song to the other. Like Hamilton does this in like the best way that I can think of, because every so often there will like be a song that weaves together elements and lyrics from like the previous 5 songs, and you're just like, how does he do that? Like this is like a medley of his own songs. So yeah, I love that kind of thing.